Get the pick me up.
Yeah, right? Good.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We have sequencing 1. So I'm gonna post this so we all know where we're at. All righty. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Great to have you all here today. I'll just take a minute, let you all settle. If you want to, we'll be talking first about the Mark Stevens book a little bit, and then in the manual we'll be at 3.2. Will be that section on sequencing. Let's see. For the if you have the new version of the Mark Stevens book, it's gosh, I just looked here. 323 to 344. And if you have the original one, it's page 277 and on.
Which one is this?
That is, I think that's I think that's the first one. Well, do they, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, so 277 for you, Erin. Yeah.
I already knew it. I had it tabbed and I totally didn't realize it.
That's all right. That's perfect. Someone just knocked. Did I just hear knocking?
I would venture to guess that it's Greg.
No.
Oh, they're knocking on that door. Okay. All right. So you all are not an on time bunch. I got. It's just because it's my pet peeve that you're not. Well, you three over here. Page 23. Yeah, 323 for the new one. Okay. Well, welcome. Let's get started because now we're 4 minutes late and you will learn. I am one of those people. I want to start on time. I want to end on time. Yes. That is my thing. I like the rows nice and neat. I have my things, right? We all have our things. So I'll just let you know that about me right off the bat. That's my thing. Okay, well, welcome. I'm Laura, and it has been forever since I've gotten to be with you all. So it's good to see you all. I'm looking forward to getting to know you all as you move through. You have 1 month left, right? That's where you're all at. How exciting. So exciting. Yeah, I've just had subs where I've had we were out of town and then it was like a conflict with extended where I was like, I cannot be at 2 places at one time. So you've gotten to meet all my lovely people who sub for me, which is really wonderful. And now it's like this morning. And Austin is my husband. So this morning I was like, okay, my first time to be with him. He's like, wow, he's like wrapping up with you all. And I'm like now starting to join in. So today we're going to talk sequencing. We've got part 1 and part 2. And I want to do just kind of some intro so I can get to know you all a little bit. You can get to know me a little bit. So as you know, I like to start and end on time. I have my little peculiarities sort of thing. And so just, a little bit about me. And if you have questions about anything, feel free to ask me. I try to be like an open book of all things yoga. And if you have questions, whatever, if you like to talk about cats, I love cats. We have 2 cats. Right. Yeah. So that's always fun. Any animals really love. But I've been teaching for 20 years, almost 21 in a few months. It'll be 21 years of teaching yoga. And I will say, the longer I teach, the more I get to be in this realm, the more I really can just feel and see that there's just so much to learn, right? That learning journey never really truly ends. And that's really exciting. So there's always something more to kind of learn along the way. And specifically when we look at sequencing and looking at teaching yoga, and I will say this to you a million times, and it is one of those things that I think is the hardest for teachers to grasp and to really truly embody is to keep it simple. The more you can keep it simple, the easier you'll be able to reach your students. It's going to feel better for you as a teacher, all of that sort of things. And that's really something that it was a hard lesson I had to learn. Like it's one of those things we go through, like we want to really complicate things, but the more we can like simplify, the better. When I start to look at that with teaching. And yeah, and especially to have that longevity to be able to teach a long time, trying not to make things too complicated. Just kind of helps because life's whether or not, no matter what's happening when you're going through stuff. Can we make some room for them, please? Great. Perfect. Okay, so any questions for me right off the bat that you just need to know? Does anyone that you need to know from me? Because like sometimes it's like I want to know X. Like if you're like, who is this person who's going to talk at us for a few hours today? Is there anything you all need to know?
Two cats.
Oh, I have two cats. Thank you. We have two. Well, first the OG. This is Sophie on my phone right here. This was Sophie. She passed away a little over a year ago. She was almost 20. She was my girl. I had her since a teeny, like she was this big when I got her. And yeah, she was amazing. Yeah. So Austin got to know her too, and she was great. And then almost a year ago, so on January 2nd, we'll have had these our two little buddies that are Mabel Bean and Penny Pickles. And I've got an actual picture of them together. Let's see, where is it? So Aaron can see. So they're torties. We love our little torties. So it's a mama cat and her baby, one of her babies. So, and we adopted them from a rescue where this woman, she rescues, mama cats or mama cats with their babies. And so she had rescued them from a kill shelter and that's what she does. And so that's how we kind of found them. And so they've been such a joy and a pain in our butts, right? All that good stuff, which we just love. So great. Thanks, Ray, for that question. Anything else? Yoga or not yoga related, anything else? Well, and feel free if something comes up as we kind of go along. Oh, also it gets confusing because my last name is Lance and Austin's is Richmond, and then there's Amber Richmond. So people are like, wait, who's married to whom, right? And they're the siblings, right? As you probably have. You guys got to meet Amber yet? Yeah, okay, great. Let's see. And my pronouns are she, her. So if we can, let's go around, we'll just kind of go around. And what I was thinking is I'd love to know, since we're talking, and if there's anything you just want me to know about yourself, if you're like, I need you to know this about me, feel free to just share. But how's your practice going? Like how's your practice going? Maybe how's teaching going? And has it changed? Has your practice changed for you while you've been like in this journey of going through teacher training? You can answer all of them or just one part, doesn't really matter, but just to kind of get an idea of like how let me know a little bit about you. Okay. So say your name, your pronoun, and answer any of those questions. Okay, who wants to go first? Anyone? Burning desire. Great.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn Rose, she, her pronouns. My practice has actually gotten better. I'm a little bit more aware of like where I am in space with my practice, and I'm more consistent with it than I used to be. Also, I'm very giggly, so sorry if I just tee-hee. It's not anything about you. I giggle when I'm nervous, I giggle when I'm happy, I giggle when it just comes on out of me.
I love it. Great. Thanks, Ashlyn. Ashlyn, right? Yeah. Okay, great. I really try to learn names, so I'm gonna do my best to like get this all down. So give me some grace. Yeah.
I do have 3 siblings, so any loud noise in my general direction, I will also answer to.
Okay.
And any of my siblings' names.
Perfect. There we go.
You just
Got it. Perfect.
Huh?
Great. We'll
I think
just
she pointed at me.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just nominated you, so there you go.
Oh, I was just like, I'm gonna pass it that way.
My name is Hope. Pronouns, sometimes I get confused. But I am she. I did that one night, but I'm not confused. But So my practice, I feel, has gotten better. My personal practice has gotten better just because I think I'm putting the things together that I've done for, close to 12 or 12 plus years,
Mhm.
just kind of learning the why behind what we do. And,
Mhm.
so there's been some aha moments. And teaching, I think, is, it's all kind of coming together, but we'll see when we do our next round robin.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you when I first started teaching, I remember in my teacher training, I was like, we'd practice, break out into practice teaching, and I would just black out the entire time. I'm like, and people are like, that was great, or you should do this. I'm like, okay, I don't even know what happened. So, so no, there's hope if you're our hope, there's hope, right? When you're just, give it some time. Trust the process. Yeah.
My name is Hannah. I go by she, her, hers. So my practice is going well. I feel like more than anything, I just discovered a lot of things about myself. So I feel like I'm completely like, I thought I transformed before, and now I'm like, oh, another layer.
Oh, I love it.
So that part, like I'm also like being more aware, like when I'm practicing, I'm understanding, because I've done inconsistently yoga on and off for the last, I don't know, 5 years. So
Mhm.
now it's like, okay, I'm learning the why behind it.
Yeah.
And that really connects me to the practice. And as a teacher, like connects me to the why. Like
Mhm.
why do, because I just decided to become a teacher like the last minute and know why behind it. So now I'm like, okay, this is something that I really connect to.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, so for the next round robin is gonna be interesting. I put myself up to like some beat, and then I'm like, okay, come on, So that part is like trying to let go of the anxiety and the nerves, and just connecting to the why,
Yeah.
which is to discover and grow, and then do the same for our students. Which, sounds great to me.
I love it.
So,
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Well, and remember you all, this is adult learning and it's harder when you're, as we get older, it's harder to learn new things. It takes a little bit for those synapses to fire in the brain and for things to start to connect. And what you'll hear me say many times is the repetition, just to keep practicing, keep saying it out loud. You can memorize it all you want, but it's the getting from the brain to the mouth. You have to say it out loud. So when you're driving in your car, when you're getting breakfast ready in the morning, when you're talking to your children, your pets, your whomever, like teach them just to say it out loud. My cat learned yoga when I like inhale, halfway lift, exhale, forward fold. You just like say it over and over, and it will help for that to flow a little bit easier. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Hannah.
Awesome. Well, I'm Rachel. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I joined teacher training to deepen my practice, and I definitely think that's where we're headed.
Mhm.
Both on and off the mat. I am analyzing things a little bit differently or questioning things differently, and I'm really enjoying the yoga philosophy aspect of teacher training as well. But as my practice goes, that's my favorite part of what we're doing here, to be quite honest. So I'm excited to, like I said, have a different lens on as I am practicing and understanding more of the why and why I'm doing this more so for, for myself and then for the students. But then as teacher training's going on, yeah, I think it's great. Similar, we haven't done round robin in a week, so we'll see how that goes. But doing the steps, doing the process, so just along for the journey and excited to keep growing and adding more tools to my belt.
I love it. How far along are you in the sequence? Are you all the way through yet?
Yeah.
You're all the way through. Okay.
Yeah.
You're all, we are. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Okay, love it. Well, thanks, Rachel.
I'm Karen. Should be easy to remember because it was the most popular name in 2020.
Right.
But I like the most popular name in 2020. It's easy. But I've always loved yoga. I haven't practiced it as much as I should have, just because life, as we discussed, gets in the way. But I do love it, which drew me to teaching it because I want to teach something that I love. And I had an injury, so I had a setback for about 3 weeks. And so that was discouraging in a sense, only because I wanted to continue to progress. And but I'm better now, my movement's better now. And and I love it. So I have like this new found energy, you know,
Mhm.
for all things yoga.
Mhm.
And, but I will say this, through the process and, it feels being a teacher, because that was my goal, is to be a teacher, is I now feel like this heavy sense of responsibility for the reverence of all things again,
Yeah.
yoga. And I don't want to do a disservice to any of it, to myself, to my students, to the you know, to the studio, to anybody,
Right.
you know what I mean? Just
Mhm.
because the more I learn, the more I appreciate, and the more it's just, you just keep going deeper and deeper, and it's very profound.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure I respect and honor that.
Yeah.
So I think that will come.
Mhm.
But I don't want to take it lightly.
Yeah,
So
I love
so
that,
yeah.
Karen. Well, guess how you do it? Guess how you do that, that you maintain that respect for it?
Practice, yeah,
You practice, you study and you practice.
yes.
Yep, absolutely. That's all you gotta do. To all of you, that's all you gotta do. Is just show up, study and practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been wonderful, and I do love it.
Love it.
And
And I will say also injury, although they do suck, right? But it's not fun when that happens. It can be the best teacher for you when to like figure out, oh, well, I can't do this like this. How do I find the words to say that if like you can't demo something? Or to just be like, oh, then when you finally get back to your practice and you're feeling muscles a little differently, and then you're like, oh, I could give this cue. I didn't even pay attention to that before. So the injuries can be a gift for us as teachers when that happens. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, or if you just have a break from practicing for a while and you come back to it, or you go on vacation or whatever, life happens and you finally get back to that first class and you're like, yes, right, all that. And like that can be part of your inspiration for your teaching. So remember that can be a nice little surprise in disguise. Yeah.
yes, it was like, okay, what's the modification? What's the modification for this pose as I've been
Mhm.
easing back into
Yeah.
some of the positions?
Because your students will have those same questions. They
Yeah.
will come to you with injuries. They will still show up. People come all the time with injuries or different things going on in their bodies. And you're like, okay. And if you can speak from especially personal experience, it's going to make it even more richer for them, that and you can really speak to that for them, which is great. Yeah, great. Thanks, Karen. Laura, the easiest name for me to remember. Yes.
Pronouns, she, her, just like everybody else, like a why, you know, why we're doing these poses. And as far as my practice, I'm beginning to, realize why we do what we do. And, it's taken a lot of, getting back to it actually for me, because I'm so focused on studying.
Yeah.
And so it kind of took a back burner, but I've getting
I was
back
waiting
into
for
it.
someone's
Yeah.
answer to be that. Yeah. Mhm.
So, but this has become my priority.
Yeah.
As far as the journey and teaching, it's been wonderful. For me, just knowing that it's actually like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I like that. You know, it's a lot of positive things that we can learn and incorporate in our own lives. So,
Mhm.
but I'm enjoying it very much so. And, you know, support of everybody. We all support each other. So, which is wonderful too.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I know I've heard nothing but great things about this group. Everyone keeps saying like, they're such a fun group. They're so fun. You're gonna love them. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you. Ben, I know Ben.
Hey, hi, I'm Ben, and my journey has been actually really interesting. Almost a couple of years ago, I experienced a work-related injury, and you know, I was coming in the studio with two crutches and the whole thing on the leg.
You were. I forgot about that.
Yes, and it was just something that allowed me to kind of fall in love with the practice, and you know, teaching, and it's one of the things where, like Hannah mentioned, learning like kind of different layers. I was like, okay, I was all right. Camel, or just when you're standing on your knees and you're pushing your knees together. That was just something I learned yesterday.
Mhm.
And it's like a real interesting journey, unfolding kind of things about myself and actually others also. And with teaching, I'm, to be honest, really, kind of petrified. I can be petrified and just been learning to, I guess, kind of get out of myself and get into, like engage in others
Mhm.
and things like that. And that is working on like the nerves, and we're all human
Mhm.
and we do make mistakes, but getting through and having something to offer is something that
Mhm. Awesome, thanks, Ben. Yeah, those nerves are normal, and you know what, friends, they don't go away. I mean, they do a little bit, like, they shift, they change, it evolves into different things. Like last night, Austin and I had our sonic yoga last night at the other studio, and yeah, beforehand, we were both nervous. It was just like, okay, well, it's been a minute since we've done anything like that, so, and just like, you wanna like show up and really serve your students, and so it's like, the butterflies come, but just remember that means you're excited, that it matters to you when that happens. And then you do your best to be prepared. That will always help. The more prepared you can be, that will help with those nerves. But the nerves are just kind of there. And I always try to remind myself that means that it matters, right? When I feel those come, it's like, okay, this is important to me. And that's okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
Craig Keegan is, see, yoga practice, it's gotten a lot harder. Because when I actually do yoga, I'm paying attention to all the subtle like alignments and everything. I'm like, wow, this is actually like, this hurts. I'm getting a workout. But yeah, like Laura was saying, it's kind of hit the back burner. Just time wise.
Mhm.
But yeah, I joined the yoga teacher training just because I got a text message on the phone saying, hey, you might be interested. I'm like, yeah, I am.
Perfect. Well, yes, I am.
And that's really it, but I'm getting a lot out of it, especially for my own practice, and that's really what I wanted to get out of it. Class so far, we're 2/3 of the way in, I think. So that's a little intimidating. But yeah, that's all.
Mhm.
Oh, I got 2 cats.
What are your cats' names?
Beamer and Hosmer.
Oh my God.
Beamer is Polish for moonshine. He's a little Siamese, and then Hosmer is Harriet Hosmer, and it's because she's smart and quirky.
Oh my God, so fun. Thanks, Greg. Oh, love it. Perfect. Thank you.
Sophia, she, hers. And I'm in a little bit of a third life crisis.
Third life. I love it.
Yeah, I still have a ways to live, but yeah, so I left MRI in healthcare, and I'm a little untethered right now, so I feel like when they say give tasks to a busy person, there's a reason for that, because I feel like I have all this time, and then I'm going on a hike with my dog, or I'm wasting time. So I feel like I wish I could put more time towards yoga, but it's good to be surrounded by people when you're going through some weird times in your life. So I thought I joined this to teach, but I realized I joined it because I've always been interested in those little subtleties, like warrior, you're supposed to be more of a side bend, things like that. But then diving a little bit deeper into the chakras and getting to know all of that has been really great. So yeah, just here, and we'll see where it goes.
Great. Thanks, Sophia. Well, welcome. I mean, none of us know what we're doing ever anyway. So you're great. You're in the right place.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Gabby, she, her. I've been on kind of a learning journey this year, so this is part of that process. As far as my own practice, it's become, like I think Ashlyn said, more consistent. I've always kind of dipped in and out of my practice. And it's also made me go deeper in my practice. It's not as superficial because of what we're learning, which is part of the point. So that's been great. And then as far as yoga teacher training, I'm really loving it. It's been great on so many levels. I do struggle with the memorization portion, but I know that with time and practice that I'll get it. And just a heads up, I switched my pre-workout yesterday and I haven't dialed in the dosage and I'm feeling a little funky this morning. Caffeine makes me like anxious and like weird energy. But I have a cat and a dog at home. The cat is 13. Her name's Ophelia. And a dog named Buckley.
Love it. I love your t-shirt. I forgot about that, man. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Well, trust also, friends, that like this last month of the training, you'll have a lot of opportunities to practice teach. So you're going to get more and more of that to help kind of work out the memorization, get the nerves out and all that good stuff with it. Yeah. Erin, how about we'll have you go? Just we're kind of going around and I'm considering you right here.
Erin, she, her. The class is going good for me. It's something I've always wanted to do. I've been on and off practicing since I was like a freshman in high school. And I've always loved it. For me, I'm backwards to I think the rest of my Sangha in that like I have spent most of my like yoga journey on like the philosophy and lifestyle. And then the physical practice is kind of like my bonus. So as I've been in the teacher training, it's my physical practice has kind of almost stopped completely, save for what we do in class because I'm focusing so intently on the content and like the other things that we're learning. And balancing my time is really hard now, in this phase of my life with my kid and this class and just like life in general. So I'm really hoping that once I get to teach, I'll be more consistent in my physical practice. Teaching in general is something that I love. I was in the Army for 10 years. So molding people, like watching them change from one thing to another is like a passion of mine. And being able to do that through yoga is like the ultimate like goal for teaching and transformation like for people because it's true it is transformative as a practice and as a lifestyle. And then like my little fun fact, I have 3 cats. I have 2 twin brothers, so a pair of twin brothers, Argo and Versace, and I got them in college. Versace came with a different name, but I was broke and I was like, I have Versace. Like so it was like my joke to myself that like I had Versace. And then last year I got my 3rd cat. Her name is her government name is Lydia, but her name is Kitty.
Nice.
And she's my baby. She's long haired, a little black and white. Like we're not supposed to have favorites, but she's my favorite. And then I have a dog. Her name is Willow. She's a border collie. She's completely neurotic. If she was a human being, I'd have a restraining order on her. Because I feel like if I were to die, she would like crawl inside my skin. Like, like she wouldn't eat me. She would like want to become me.
Right.
So yeah, so I have the three cats, the 1 dog, and then my child. His name is Zion. He will probably come up
Great.
here at some point. But yeah, that's me.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks, Erin. Thank you. Love it. Yes. I mean, if you have pets, their names are never their names, right? They're always like 17 nicknames, I feel like is how that goes.
is Okame, but we all call her Meatloaf.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Mhm.
Her name is Meatloaf or Fifi.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was so Phoebe. That was one of her names. Or Sofa Loaf. Right. And Mabel's Mama Pajama.
Oh, yeah,
Sometimes.
there's something about.
Right? I mean, Penny's Pepe. Or PP. Or whatever. Yeah, right? Yes, I love it.
Dogs, and none of them answer to their names anymore. None of them.
I love it. Okay, perfect. Two more.
Trevor, him. I've been enjoying my practice a lot. It's probably never been better. I'm having a lot of fun because I feel like I've developed more muscle memory with the sequence, and then I can actually focus on some of the details or just not have my brain running the whole time. So that's been really nice, being able to branch out into some other classes and not feel lost. I've really been enjoying the power class a lot. The sequence, I'm like everyone else, I need a lot of practice, and it's kind of starting to show.
Perfect.
I've been enjoying a lot of the philosophy. I think there's just a lot of things we don't talk about in modern society that we've gotten to discuss here, and it's been really interesting just getting to have those conversations and hearing people's opinions and developing your own.
Love it. Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, which I will say to our friends who are like, my practice is on the wayside. Remember, your practice can be 2 minutes long. Like if you can just get and drop into your body for like one round of sun salutations or something like that, I encourage you to find that because it will make that memorization and all that other stuff a lot easier. It just will make it so much easier for you. And yes, then it's like yoga land. Right now you're like, welcome to where you'll be like, this is yoga world when you hear it. And then you go out into the rest of the world, you're like, oh yeah, the rest of the world isn't like yoga land, right? And so it's like wearing those different hats in between stuff. You will maybe find that now like small talk conversations you just can't handle, right? Once you, because you're like, I don't have time for this, right? You're like, let's get into it. What's your shadow side? Tell me all about it, right? Let me know, right? All that good stuff. Love it. Cool. All right. And last but not least.
My name is Alexis. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And like some of us, my practice has kind of also been pushed to the back burner just because time management is hard.
Yeah.
But my goal right now is to at least go once a week. And that's been working for the most part. There might be a couple of weeks where I haven't, but I've been really getting into like the study side, and I've really been enjoying that because I didn't realize how much depth there was to yoga, and I've really enjoyed kind of digging deeper. And as a lot of these people said, the why, figuring out kind of the why and why I showed up to do this, and why I want to teach. I've really enjoyed this class. It's kind of, I don't like thinking that it's only a month
I know.
away, just because it's, I don't know, I really like just coming in and seeing all these people, and then it's just gonna stop.
I know, right?
But I don't know, I'm excited to practice more, and I'm excited to start teaching. It will be interesting, but yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Thanks, Alexis. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks. I was like, I want to just get to know y'all a little bit before I just start yapping at you. Right. Well, very exciting. Cool. Let's see. So also the other thing, I also like to give us breaks too. So whenever I like to usually see, like if I see the glazing start to happen, I try to like, let us take some breaks. So are we doing okay? Do we need a quick bathroom break or are we okay? Are you guys doing okay? So I was thinking maybe like in about 20, maybe. Hannah's all, I will speak for you all. Well, and of course, if you need to get a take care of yourself, obviously. If you need to stand up, if you need to stretch, if you're like, if I don't do a down dog right now, like do what you need to, right? I will say I've done thousands of hours of training and like, I get that when you're just like, I cannot sit one more minute. I need to stand, stretch, like do all the things, take care of yourself. Okay. Drink the water, as you see, I've got 3 beverages, right? I always have lots of beverages. Yes.
Before we really get started, I don't know if anyone's been chattering about it. Do you guys want to do like a Thanksgiving thing?
Mm.
Talking about like, this is gonna end too soon. I know. Just throwing it on.
Okay, great,
That's
good,
it.
great, perfect, thanks. Okay, so let's chat a little bit about the book. So you had that section to read. Any takeaways? What did you all, what's kind of, any takeaways, thoughts, concerns, panic, excitement, anything kind of come up while you're kind of reading through this section?
I liked how he broke things down, right? Like you said, like 5 points that you need to, like that helps me to understand. It's like, okay, let's go back to those 5 points that he's recommending, creating a sequence.
Yep.
And then he used all Sanskrit.
Yes.
And I was like, I just remembered Adho Mukha. I like found it out. So I didn't go back and look at. Yeah. So that was like a little lost there. I was like, where's the translation?
It's in the back. Everything is in the back, friends. So just know that. I know that's often people are like, oh, the Sanskrit, but I'm like, you got to learn it at some point in time, so start now, diving in and flip back. Everything's in the back. He does have, especially all the asanas listed in there. So if you look at the back, you can definitely pull it up, which I know it's a challenge, but it's it's good for our brains to like look that up. And then if you want, you can write in English next to those things to like start to learn that stuff. I know, but he like doesn't, he's all, nope, I'm not going to give you no English. It's like,
But overall, I really liked it. I like how he breaks things down and he gives you the why. Right? Again, going back to like, okay, why do we do integration? Like, what's the awareness to start the practice? Like the yogic, I can't pronounce that, like the yogic essence of how to take your student from A to B and how to meet them where they are. And so I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
So far, what I've read, not a lot, but
Yeah.
yes, good job.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Yeah. What else? Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
I enjoyed the overall teacher training sequence. I don't know, that's maybe weird, but the fact that like we started with the sequence and then now we're rolling into this part later on, and it was fun to, even though there was a lot of Sanskrit that it was hard to identify with, but it was familiar, and that felt good just to even have familiarity, even though it's totally a second language. I was using the Google. I was like, okay, I'm going to Google this, or I was using my posture list to help, because I knew that some of the, like, as we were just reading, like, as you transition to, from one pose to another pose, it's good to use. I can't recite the actual poses, but like, this is a counter pose to this. I know that word. And
Yeah.
I guess it, and I'm either wrong or I'm right, and I'm going to write down the English version. And I felt like the repetitiveness.
Yep. That repetition, right? There's so much in the repetition.
So it was nice to have this and then to flow into this.
Yeah.
Even though this is still very important.
Yeah. Who speaks more than one language? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, Hannah, great. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's repetition. It takes time. Yeah, it just takes some time to learn. So be patient with yourself. Like, let it be, one Sanskrit word at a time. You don't have to know them all today, but maybe you can learn 2, or maybe 1 for each day or something, so be patient with yourself. Yeah. Cool. Okay, what else?
I just really liked the way that he made it very logical. Like, this is the why of what we're doing, why we see things this way.
Yeah.
And it just makes a lot of sense. And there is a sentence at the very beginning of that that I really loved. The teacher's role in this process is threefold: intelligently plan the route based on the realities of the terrain and students in class, observe and communicate with students to ascertain whether they have integrated the experience with stability and ease, and provide informed guidance and inspiration along the path. it's so like succinct.
I mean, that's it. That's our job. I know I was like, discuss. That's what I have here tonight. Like, discuss this. That's perfect, Gabby. Absolutely. Yeah, that's it, friends. That's it. And know that you're kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of like, oh, well, I got to learn the sequence first. And then there's some Sanskrit and there's some breath work. But yeah, it's like, can we get these 3 things knocked out and we're good to go? And I think that next paragraph as well, right after, where he says, generally speaking, every class should offer a balanced practice that includes dynamic warming of the body, right? Where do we do that? Integration, right? Sun A, right? With some cows and cats, right? Standing asanas that build further stamina and strength. Where do we do that? Our sun bees, our crescent, right? All that. And then a well thought out pathway to the peak asanas. What might, in the Cambio sequence, what might our peak asana be? Bro, right? Bakasana. Could be. Time to fully explore the peak. And from there, a calming pathway to Shavasana. Yeah, right? Like that. I think that's so great. Like that's it, right? That's really like he really lays it out nicely. And then then a lot of nuts and bolts of the why I think is really helpful. I will tell you, this book I think is a really great tool, especially once you start teaching. There's a lot of stuff in here, like the section for business of yoga. When we get to that, like I think there's really like the way he just kind of says, place your mats this way, like different ways that you maybe haven't thought of before. He kind of lays all that stuff out for you. And I think that that's really helpful along the way. But yeah, any other thoughts, questions, comments about this section, or anything you were like, wait, what? Like that you read in here that stood out to you?
Was maybe arbitrary, but notice was 75 minutes class with least time, 75, 90, then 80. So I was, like I said, I know it's arbitrary, but it's still a question on mine. So 16 minutes and
Why 60?
Or why is it not zero?
I don't remember him not saying not 60, but what I will say, why 60 tends to be, well, why do you all think that 60 minutes tends to be kind of in general? Yep. More accessible. People can be like, they can carve out an hour typically in their lives. And that's kind of been like the norm, I would say, around not even yoga, but even if we look at fitness classes in general, it's usually around an hour. I will say some studios are longer, 75, 90-minute, like Austin's, his Yoga Plus is 75 minutes. Some of the hot yoga are 90 minutes. In general, though, anytime you go over an hour, it can create a barrier for people for time. Because, you got to think about that travel time to get there. People have sitters, all sorts of things going on that can sometimes, people are always like, make class longer. And it's like, I would love to. And that sometimes just doesn't work for a lot of people's schedules. So that's kind of where that 60 minutes is for, when we start to look at time.
It works.
And it works, right? You can still get a lot done. And that's where just no faffing about and to like keep it simple, right? That's the thing. Like last night with our workshop, it was a 90-minute class and it was a vinyasa yin. And I was really grateful when I was planning that I wrote down my time of like, okay, I'm going to do about 50 minutes of vinyasa and like 25, 30 minutes of yin. And I wrote down, what time will that be? Because when you're in it in the moment and you're teaching and managing, so I was like, I had written down 6:20 is where and I was so glad because then when I was like looking at my watch for time, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on track or I need to shift. It was one of those things of like knowing that because, I'm usually teach an hour class. And so it was nice to be like, have that time point to remember to like keep myself on track. Which will also be helpful for you all. So if you don't have a watch, I would have some kind of timing device for when you're teaching because it becomes really helpful when you're teaching class. Yeah, cool. What else? Anything else? And you don't have to. If there's anything else that stood out to you. listen to you.
Okay, I'll go one more time.
Yeah.
Active warming and the difference between active warming and like passive warming. Because
Mhm.
before, like I really love the hot yoga classes.
Mhm.
Before I learned about vinyasa, I
Mm.
actually took a vinyasa class
Mhm.
right now in a yoga teacher training. And I can see how when he talks about like passive warming of the body, it's like right, the heat of the
Mhm.
room. So it's like it's a little harder to understand, like because you are under that heat, like if you're warmed up enough for some
Mhm.
poses, so it's more risky, like it's
Yep.
more open to injury.
Yes. Mhm.
And then I can totally see the difference now as I go through this training, how like before this training, I looked at yoga through the lenses of like, I just want to work out, right? Like hot yoga is like the way to go. But then because I thought everything else was too passive,
Uh-huh.
and it's not like that. Like, you know, the series is
Mhm.
like, I'm done
You're
on
right.
my knees after the first one, because it's like, it really increases your heart rate. And so it
Mhm.
was like great to read that and to
Mhm.
just see it through those lenses.
Yeah. Love that.
So that's a personal preference.
It is definitely a preference, and it's a good thing to know too. Like if you're injury prone or more hypermobile, you got to be careful when you go into like those heated rooms, like, and then also for those of us on, that are lucky enough to be on the tighter, stiffer side, you're like, oh yay, the heat, it helps me, like, but to know that and know that about yourself, and then to know that about your students as well, to help guide them along the way as well. Love that. Great. Cool. All right. Well, reference this. This is a great tool to have. He's written many other books as well. He also has a sequencing book. I'll bring that next time. A book on sequencing. He's got a book on assist. He's got a yoga therapy book. There might be one other one, and they're all this thick. He likes to write. He's definitely for sure. So, great resource, great tool. Okay. Now let's, I'm curious, we can start to move into the manual, and I'll share the screen with you, Erin, so you can reference that. So you all have been observing classes, yeah? Yep, you have. I know like some of you observed my class. I'd love to know, what are you kind of noticing about sequencing now that you're kind of in that realm of observing class, or even when you're practicing? Are you notice anything about sequencing, or what's kind of popping up for you? Yeah.
There's a lot more and more experienced teachers, they'll do whatever they want with the core, and they can kind of like split it up a little bit, or a lot more yogic postures other than just some crunches,
Mhm.
which I kind
Yep, that variety.
of be very fast paced, like watching that pace.
Mhm.
Right.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
They get a lot in there.
Yeah. Cool. What else? What else are we? Yeah, Ashley.
In high school, I took a yoga class, and part of our final was to create our own like 30-minute sequence.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was doing that, I would like put a bunch together, and then I take myself through them to make sure like they flowed together nicely. And also, so certain poses didn't come up too fast, and that you didn't put some poses too late, because you want to end in savasana, so that everybody has a moment to just lay there and come back into their bodies and get back into like the real world mindset of like, this is not a yoga class anymore, which is always sad. But like the brain effort it takes and the physical effort it takes to be like, don't put, well, this one's a really active pose, so don't put it too late. And this one's like, and you can't go straight from this pose to this pose, because that, it doesn't flow well. And also, like we were talking about the paper clip phenomenon yesterday, where like you can't just bend, lest you
Break.
snap the paper clip.
Yeah. And what I'll say, I think that really stands out, Ashlyn, what you said is that, and this is for everyone, and that's a good lesson you learned, is that whatever you come up with for sequencing, practice it first before you teach it. So if you're starting to come up with some new sequences or little flows, make sure you can do it in your body first. Like that's going to be key to like, you try it. Does it make sense? Does it feel good? How's the breath with it? And then you also have to put another element on there of if you are someone who is more bendy, if you're cursed with like major flexibility, you will have a bigger challenge in the sense of things will be like, well, yeah, duh, I can totally just go right into triangle pose, second pose. Like the rest of us need some warming up in our body for that. So that's where, for those that are more bendy, you've got to like think a little bit more about like, ooh, okay, is this enough warm? Have I warmed them up enough for this part of class? Because like standing splits, like that's not like the third pose, right? That you like get the body warm the hamstrings up, warm the hips up, those sort of things. So you have to start to think about that in general of like, what do you notice is a little bit tighter on most people so that we give them enough time to be prepped and ready for it. But definitely practice it yourself. That's one of those things that I will see sometimes happen where I go to class and I'm like, did you practice it? And the answer is, well, I thought ... It's like, don't do this until you've been practicing for a really, really long time. And even then, like I did some different stuff in my class last night and I was in our backyard with the cats and I was like doing the yoga. I was like, does this make sense? And like repeating it multiple times of like, how do I say this then? Because it was kind of a little tricky transition. So it was like, okay, how do I say this? What kind of is the breath making sense here? To really like feel it in my body so that when I stepped in to teach it, I felt comfortable and confident to go for it and that it would make sense. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't. And that's part of it. Sometimes you guess and you're like, whoops, shit the bed on that one. Yeah, and then you laugh when that happens when like I will say there was a thing I did last night where we were doing a lot of like swimming of the arms since it was like flowing to music, a lot of that. And so I was like, okay, now we're from here and then we flow. And I'm like, swim your arms back. And like one of the people in class, she's like, I can't swim. And so it was like a funny, just like, and then we all laughed. It was a good moment of connectivity for the group and for everyone to just be like, and then I'm like, just move your arms, move them around and play with it. And so I would say speaking to that, like when you see that happen in the room, instead of like panicking, being like, oh my God, I failed. Oh no, it's like, okay, that like, you just laugh. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect how it lays out. Okay. Okay, cool. Anything else? Any of y'all are noticing? Yeah, Karen.
So I noticed, and just the theming,
Mhm.
like everyone has their own style.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they bring that to the table, and I kind of feel like we're all individuals, and once we develop our own style, like your people will come.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, cause when we were there Thursday, it was just very high energy and just loud music, like good fun, and I feel like.
Oh, for Scott's class? Yeah. For the hot.
He created an environment, like he found his people found him.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess how that relates to sequencing is knowing the sequencing, the postures that align with the theme that
Mhm.
you're trying to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you are all learning the exact same sequence, but the way you will deliver it will be unique to each of you. The way you deliver it, the way you bring in your theme, the anatomical things that resonate with you. You're memorizing things, but you will eventually start to find your own cues that make sense to you. And then you get to just kind of flourish and create what makes it uniquely you, which I think is such a beautiful thing and such a gift that you get to learn a sequence right off the bat. Because not all trainings are like that. Some trainings are like you learn some warm-up poses, some standing, and and then it's like now and then put a sequence together. Like to me, that's asking a lot in a 200-hour to like make people figure that out. So that's why we do this, to like, now that you've seen a sequence, now it's like, how do we tweak that? How do we play with that a little bit? What are the components that need to happen when you start to sequence and create things on your own? And I will say, caveat with this, know that if you might be someone who's like, excuse me, ma'am, but I just need to know the cambio sequence right now, and my brain cannot think about anything else. That is okay. That is just fine. But I want to be able to give you this so that at a later point in time, that maybe once you start teaching and you're like, okay, now I want to change things up a little bit, that you've got some tools so that you don't just go, well, we only learned this and that was it. It's like, nope, you want to be able to learn a few different things through the process. Okay, so don't feel bad if you're like, I just have to keep this sequence in my mind. That's okay. But I will encourage you when you're practicing class and when you're observing all of that to even though like, say, like you've observed my class, clearly I wasn't teaching the Cambio sequence.
No, can I say something?
Yeah,
else
of
to
course.
the
Mhm.
Previous point, I love how creative, like how it fosters creativity and like the teacher, like you're very intuitive, like you even, but you were present too. That There was a point in the class where the music didn't match and you like made a comment, you're like, oh, that was off.
Yeah.
Everybody laughed, right? So you're like in it.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important.
Mhm.
Really, like that really spoke to me.
Yeah, and that's practice and time. But did you also notice did you notice there was an integration? That there was a son A, there was a son B, right? That all of those components were in there. They may have just been moved around a little bit, or things were tweaked or added or taken away, right? That there's like, it's still there. So look for that when you take classes to be like, are we warming up? Is there a son A? Is there a son B? Because when we're looking at vinyasa, these components should still always be in a class, regardless of whether you're taking my class, Austin's class, Kristen's class, an intern class. You're going to see those components. They're just going to look a little bit different when you're in class. Okay. Okay. So let's all sit up for a moment. Sit up nice and tall. Take your arms by your side. And then just lift your arms up and then bring them back down. Do that a couple times. Just lift them up and down. Okay. I'm flying. You're not flying, but okay. Now, so experiencing that. Now this time, close your eyes, flip your palms out away from you. And then as you inhale, extend your arms up overhead. Big breath. Finish the inhale, let your fingertips touch. Flip your palms out away from you, and then exhale, float your arms down by your side. Do that 2 more times. Move with your breath. Nice. Okay, then open your eyes. Were those different? Those are 2 experiences. To just lift your arms and bring them down. What was different about them? Other than the eyes closed. What felt different?
Feel like actual stretch because you're moving slow.
You're moving slowly. What else? More present.
The breath.
The breath.
And then go back to the breath.
You felt your shoulders, right? You actually felt your shoulders. Yeah. So the difference of, so the word vinyasa means to place in a special way, right? That's what it breaks down to. And to know the difference of like when we get in that flow, right? That's why we connect the breath and movement. We don't just say warrior 2, extended side angle, right? There's more. There's can you embody it? Can you breathe? Can you get yourself into it? And then when you're flowing, those transitions in and out of things, being mindful, getting more present, right? What can that look like for us when we take that time to really slow down and add those little details into the mix? Isn't that exciting? I think that's exciting. Because it's like we can all lift our arms up, but what happens when we lift our arms up and really breathe and take the time with it, right? And then lower them down and take the time. And and that was just a simple arms up overhead. But then what happens when we add in all these other poses and treat them in that same way? Exciting, isn't it? It's like possibilities are endless. Don't let that be overwhelming now. I know. And that's where keep it simple. You will get so sick of me saying that, but keep it simple, really trying to simplify when you're doing this stuff. And this is where, and to speak to Hannah's point, when we look at vinyasa, so some things to keep in mind, there is that element of creativity, which is really wonderful because we look at vinyasa doesn't have a guru. There's no like one teacher. It's not like top-down teaching where it's like so-and-so says this and you have to teach it this way. It's actually, if you were to flip a pyramid, it's more like you've got your vinyasa, your training. Maybe you were a dancer. Maybe you are a massage therapist. Maybe you really like martial arts. Maybe you're into weights. You bring all these other components into your teaching, your life experience, that draws down then through your students and shows up into your classes. So that is beautiful because there is that creativity that is there in vinyasa. And it also, I have to say, and I think Mark might even say it a little bit in here when he's talking about styles, we also need to be careful because the potential for injury is also there as well, right? Because if people are just like being really creative and throwing all this stuff in there and moving really quickly, there's a lot of repetition in there, we have to be really mindful. And that's why you get all the anatomy that you get in this teacher training, so that we can keep our students safe, because that safety comes first. I know for me, one of my goals of teaching is I want my students to have longevity when they're in their yoga class and their practice, so that they can keep doing this for years and decades to come. And so that's where we really want to be mindful and just safe when we're thinking about sequencing. This also goes to what I will say again with keeping it simple. When we start linking a lot of poses and just one after the other after other, like, it might be fun, but is it the goal that we're really looking for? You know, for me, it's not about trying to wow my students. It's really meeting my students where they're at and creating a nice, safe experience. Like, what do I want them to walk out? What kind of feeling do I want them to leave with when they're practicing? Yeah. Have you ever taken a class where you were like, what was that? And you're like, I don't even, it doesn't have, it could be here or not here, anywhere where you're just like, that was too many poses. I don't even know. Yeah.
My feedback is, I appreciate the encouragement. Good.
You're like, who's gonna do this, right? Yeah. I mean, because I mean, I will, oh yeah, Erin, you had your hand up. Sorry. Did you have your hand up?
I do have my hand up. I'm multitasking. My kid wanted something, but I took a class somewhere locally, not at Cambio, and not only did I not know what the heck was going on, but I became like enraged because I was like, what the actual fuck is going on? And he was like giving the poses his own names, which made me, I wanted to scream. And like he tried to talk to me afterwards because he saw that I have a Sanskrit tattoo, and he was like talking to me like it was such a BS. And I was talking to him about like my history in yoga, and he was like, what is that? About like some very basic things. So like it was just so awful. I will never go again. But like it was not only awful, but it felt disrespectful. It felt out of sync. It was just horrendous.
That can happen. Yep, that can happen. And I will say, I'm sorry you had that, Erin, and I'm glad you had that experience, because it's one of those things, it's gonna show up. That will sometimes happen. Like, we will, and we do our best, because when we step into the role of a teacher, we want to try to be as respectful as we can. And and then we learn, we have information. And we take that information, we do what we will with it. But yes, that can happen. And I've been there. I've been in some of those classes before. I was at a festival one time with a friend, and we like looked at each other and we were like, what is this garbage? And we left. We just left. I was like, I'm out of here. I was like, I'm not doing these transitions. I don't need, and this is like a very famous yoga teacher. And I was like, I don't understand why people want to be spoken to in this manner. It was just like, no, but now we know. And it's like, that is not my teacher. That's not my style. That's not my practice. And we know, right? We learn from those lessons. I think Ashlyn and Hope, you guys both had your hands up. Yeah.
A bit of an anecdote, but I used to work at the YMCA.
Mhm.
And I went to one of the yoga classes there because I used to work the 4 a.m. shift. So afterwards I would go to like, I think it was like a 1 o'clock yoga class.
Mhm.
And one of the people, I remember very specifically, that time on that day was like mostly elderly people,
Mhm.
and the peak pose was Birds of Paradise.
What? Oh, no.
So like one, I don't want to like, one, it was a bit of a confidence boost that I was like, and I looked around and everybody else was like, what is happening? But and then I went to talk to the teacher afterwards, and because the sequence was also kind of like, it was a little bit jumpy, like you went from like really low energy poses to really high to like mid to high to low to
Yeah.
high. I was like, this is very like a bit all over the place. So I went to talk to her, especially because at the time I was thinking about getting my training
Mhm.
certificate. And I was like, oh, where did you get yours? Trying to like feel out where was a good place to, I don't know, avoid and look into. And she was like, oh, I don't have one. I was like, you don't.
Of course. Well, there you go. Oh, that also drives me nuts.
What? She's like, oh yeah, I'm like a dancer, but it translates really well to yoga. I'm like, I'm sure it does, but you're not certified to teach yoga? No, but you don't have to be to teach at a YMCA.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Like the panic that set in was like full
I know.
body. It was like fight or flight activating.
Right.
It was like, I need to leave.
Right. And that's just not safe, right? Like I just, it breaks my heart because then people like that, either they're like, well, I'm not going to yoga, it's too hard, or, or whatever.
The older people who like there was a lot of forward bends and back bends, and like I totally understood where she was coming from like the dancing to yoga.
Right.
Absolutely. They translate really well into each other. But you're having a group of mostly
Yeah.
65-year-olds and
Know your audience, know who you're teaching
yeah,
to.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, know your audience. I am like the only 20-something in here besides the teacher. And she has these 60-year-olds trying to get like 60, 70-year-olds trying to get into Birds of Paradise. I'm like, somebody's going to fall over and break a hip.
Yeah.
Or fall over and break their whole body. And the whole body one is gonna be me.
Right. Yeah.
And it just like, sorry, I got so loud there for a second.
That's okay.
It just made me so mad.
Yeah.
So you don't have a license to teach yoga and you're not thinking about the people taking your class and their safety.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're having all these forward folds and these back bends and forward folds
Yeah.
and back bends and then birds of prey. And when you are birds of prey, I almost said birds of prey.
Yeah.
Not that one.
Right.
It just made me so upset. So it's like you're not considering anybody's safety.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that comes first.
But no, like, and so now I'm like looking at sequences. I'm like, does it flow? Do I know who's going to be taking this class? If there is somebody who can't or does not prefer to do crow, do I have alternatives
Mhm.
in mind for them?
Yeah.
Do I have adjustments and alternatives and variations for people who don't prefer to move their body
Mhm.
like that? And I don't know, I didn't mean to go on a rant, but it made me so mad, and it still makes me so mad, because I think about those old people who, what if it was their first time trying yoga, and now they're never going to go back?
Yeah.
Because, like, what the hell is happening?
Right. For sure. Thanks, Ashlyn. And hope you're good.
Well, I mean, to Ashlyn's point too, like, I've been in a class on the mat and then observing, the instructors will read the room and they're like, people aren't getting this, you know, and they'll adjust or, and I really think that that's important. And knowing your audience when you go in and say, ooh, maybe I shouldn't do those things with this group today. Maybe I should change it up. Or, I was in a class a couple weeks ago and, the instructor, was running out of time and wanted to get us on the mats because we had all just kind of checked out.
Yeah.
And so she was like, she recognized that and just got us, and, you know, we did some of the stuff to the back of the room. And then she got us on the mats because she was like, you guys are done. And so she recognized that everyone in the room and she just adjusted. And so that, I think, is one of the things that, is very important. And I hope that I can do that, you know, like kind of just feel the energy in the room, and when it's not there.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay.
And you will, and it will come. And there will be days where you're like, you get attached to your plan and you're like, I'm doing it anyway. And then you're like, damn it, why'd I do that? You know, like it happens, right? Where you're like, I think we can, and then you're like, nope, yeah. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
had an experience where I was not at Cambio, but I had done I was doing hot, and I'm not a hot yoga person. I get too hot anyway. But the instructor, this particular studio had us put our names on, a little tag on the front of our, you know, on the floor in front of us. And I didn't realize it was so that they could call you out for doing a move wrong. And I'm
Oh,
like,
God.
I'm not coming back here because I got called out in the middle of the class and I was like, what, like the second time I'd been there and I was like, I don't know what you're telling me to do, you know, so. I'm like,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I said do this and I was like, oh.
Oh,
nope,
geez.
I'm
Yeah.
out.
Right?
And then I never went back.
Yeah. That's, I
So,
mean, different strokes for different folks. And we all know that, yeah, some people love that. Some,
I don't.
yeah. And now and you're like, I do not. And it's good to know, right? And that's how you get to like figure out what resonates with you. You know, what works and what doesn't work.
Well,
Yeah.
right, and then like doing adjustments and stuff, like actually going up to the person and not whispering to them, but kind of like. Not like, he was in the front of the room when he called on me. and
Yeah.
Not coming over and saying, hey, you're all out.
That's definitely a Bikram thing for sure to,
Yeah.
to do that.
So,
Mhm. Yeah, great. That's good to know. Yeah, great. Alexis.
I've noticed even teaching, like our practice and teaching with family and
Mhm.
friends, that you have to be very aware of who you're teaching to. Because I've already had to modify the sequence when I'm teaching to my grandparents.
Uh-huh.
Because my grandma has rheumatoid arthritis and she just can't like put a lot
Be
of
on her wrist like
pressure on-
that. Yeah. Mhm.
So it's been kind of interesting to try to, because right now I'm trying to just memorize the sequence, but then you have to kind of put it into a whole nother perspective of, even though I'm trying to memorize this, I can't be putting her into these poses.
Yeah.
So kind of finding modifications
Mhm.
has been really interesting.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun and I think that's what differentiates from good teaching and bad is knowing who you're teaching to,
Mhm.
or if you're teaching to a wide variety, making sure that there's a lot of options available
Mhm.
for the people who aren't going to be able to
Yeah.
perform the poses safely.
Yeah. And options without judgment, right? That's the other thing is being really mindful of our language, that we're not like, this is more advanced, you know, that like we really stay mindful of how we, you know, whether it's like bus stops, you can be here, you can be here, you can go here or here. At any point you can say, no, thanks. You know, I joke all the time in my classroom, like at any point you can be like, I'm out. I want to stay here with this pose, you know, that you don't have to, there's not attaining anything by doing the full expression, saying in quotes, right? Full, whatever that means, right?
Gold star.
No gold star. I mean, you showed up. That's a gold star in itself. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Karen.
This is completely off track, but I have an overwhelming sense of wanting to address Alexis and just let her know, like, I hope my son meets someone like you. Just impressed. Impressed with- I don't know your age, you don't need to say it, but you're just so incredibly you're just so thoughtful and kind and.
Oh, Aaron's farting the screen. Matchmaker time. Oh my God, I love it. Yeah.
It's being created here.
Mhm.
Great.
I love it.
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, that's perfect. Let's take 5. You can swap numbers. Let's take a 5-er, quick bathroom break, because I've had all these beverages. I need a bathroom break. So quick 5, and then let's come back, okay? Myself. Because it is like herding cats, getting you all back together, which is great. Okay, we're back. Quick little break. We do okay, everybody doing all right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, stretch, do what you need to, please. Take care of yourself. Okay, let's take a look at the manual here. So it is on page 86, so 3.2 in your manual. So we're gonna go kind of over some stuff in the manual. We've got a little game that we're gonna play that I think is really fun. Huh? I know. I think it's really fun. This is something I came up years ago we'll get into it, but I'll tell you. So looking at sequencing infrastructure. So this first thing here, so it talks about a well-rounded class needs to have the 6 movements of the spine. and that will address the major muscle groups. So, and you all probably know this already, but keeping this in mind. So when you're building a sequence that you're like, are these components in here? So we've got flexion. So that's forward folds, think like cat pose, right? That's some flexion of the spine. Then extension, that's cow or any back bends, right? So we're finding flexion and extension, right? That is your practice. Does it have a nice balance of these? Then lateral flexion. So this is like our side to side. Let's all do them. Why don't we? It should feel nice. Some lateral, right? These are our reverse warriors, our extended side angle, some triangle, right? Getting these into the mix. Are we working? Aren't they the best? I feel like side bends are the best thing. Whenever I teach class and I'm like, okay, today we're going to focus on side bends, people are all like, yes. And then when I say we're going to do back bends today, they're like, ugh, right? You know, it's like, if I'm doing side bends, that means I'm doing back bends, FYI, because side bends warm you up for back bends. So, so be careful what you get excited for in class. And then we have our axial rotation, or our twists, right? So let's do a couple twists, right? Right. So working the twists. Aren't those nice? Just a little. This is where, and to me, a lot of this is functional movement too. That's a lot of like when I creating classes and sequencing, I talk about that too, of like, this is like reaching back when you're driving your car to, can you get something from the back seat? You know, can you do that? Last week I did, in my class, we did these, from like lizard lunge, we stepped our leg through and I was like, this is to help us slipping on the ice and right? I'm like, can we catch ourselves from falling? You know, like, so you can get kind of playful when you're sequencing and kind of coming up with stuff. But a lot of that I think about, what is functional movement? What's going to really help us in our day-to-day lives? And knowing, especially being in Colorado, like people are so active here. So it's like, what will kind of complement hiking, running, cycling, swimming, you know, all the things that people tend to do, climbing, all that kind of stuff that happens in Colorado, like, how can your classes help people that are doing those sort of things? Or desk jobs, you're like, I've got a lot of business people coming, you know, whatever that might be. Or I teach once a week at a birthing center here in town to the staff. And so a lot of times it's a 30-minute class and I'm like, what do we need? I have no plan when I go into that because I never know what I'm going to get. Because they might be like, I'm exhausted, right? Maybe they just had a bunch of births or something tragic happened, or they're like, I just need to move, you know, like some people want to move, some want like yin, some want just like a yoga nidra, you know, some want to just kind of roll around a little bit. And so you just never know, but it's fun to get to meet people where they're at. But I still, even in those classes, I try to work this in. I'm always getting these 6 movements of the spine for them, no matter what we're doing. Okay. Okay. So then let's look, any questions about that? Does that make sense? Is that clear? Okay. All right. So then let's look here at our pose categories. So then we've got, and this, you know, this was definitely in the book with Mark Stevens, right? We've got our standing, our seated, our inverted, and our supine, right? So knowing that different ways we are either going to be building energy, building heat, warming the body up, or maybe we're grounding or calming, taking the energy down, or inverted, like strengthening, warming. And then our supine, right? That like letting things neutralize. Where can we come to those neutral moments during class so that things make sense, so that it's not like Ashlyn was saying, we're like up, down, up, you know, that it's like, what is the general flow, or would you say like the way energy moves in a vinyasa class, specifically the Cambio sequence? How does it go? It's like up and maybe down a little, right? It's kind of like a gradual, and then it's gradual. There's not like major like peaks and valleys for hopefully, that we're it's kind of steady, but it's a gradual in various directions. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about those categories? Is that pretty clear-ish, right? Okay. So now let's look here at, let me see. Do we want to? Let's do this. So let's look at, so 10 is the sequencing. So this is that vinyasa krama. So this is that sequencing, to place in a step, to place in a special way. Okay. So how about somebody read number 1, please?
Easier postures generally come before more difficult.
That makes sense, right? We don't start in crow pose. We're not like, welcome to class, now crow, right? We don't. And that's where you start to think about what, and knowing that easier can be subjective, right? Depending on the person, right? So we want to be, but in general, thinking of, we want to, there are often poses that need to get warmed up before we start going into more advanced or difficult ones. Okay. Number 2.
Standing postures before deep-seated postures, back bends and inversions.
Yes. Why do we do that? Why do we do the standing ones first?
Energy.
Build energy and warm up.
Safety.
And safety. Yep, absolutely. Number 3.
I'll go next.
Yeah, great. We can go. You're like,
Neutralize in between back bends and forward folds and vice versa.
yeah. So neutralizing, what does that mean? Neutralizing poses to you. What does that mean to you? What's neutralizing? And we're speaking spine, just to be clear. So that means the spine. So anytime, so that could be Tadasana, that could be seated like I am right here. That could be lying down in Shavasana, anytime where you're letting the spine come to a nice neutral position. So whenever you're doing any like kind of big extension or flexion, like to come to a neutral before you go right into the next thing, I think is important. And I would say also, one of the things that may help you all as you're learning the sequence as well. So when you look at a series, so say you just taught your son A and you're in down dog, correct? Right? So instead of jumping immediately into look to the top of your mat, step forward, and then coming to your Utkatasana, take a few breaths in down dog. Let the series settle before you move on. This is one of the gifts that if you can remember this, will help you in a variety of ways. One, it's going to help for those of you that talk about reading energy of the room. If you pause in between there, you get a chance to see how are your students doing. Because if you say, okay, we flowed Sun A, we're in down dog, and then you say, take a few breaths, you may notice everybody stays steady and they're just like, okay, they're focused and ready. You may notice a bunch of people drop to child's pose when they know they've got a few breaths, or people drop and start getting water. And that's all information that's good for you to know, to be like, okay, do I need to adapt? Do I need to start tweaking things, or are we good to keep on track? And if you never pause, then you never know. You don't get a chance to kind of see what's going on with your students. The other thing that it's really great to start to build that into your teaching is because it helps you to remember what's next. Because then it's like 3 deep breaths and then you can be like, oh shit, what comes next? Where do I go? You can like look at your notes, or, like you're like, check in, like, how's my music? How's the heat? Like, how are things, like it gives you a moment to check in too, to be like, how are you doing? How's your timing? Are you on track with things? So it's a gift for you as well as for your students, if you can pause. So if you take my class, notice when I take those breaks, that I don't just go right in. We're not just constantly like this. We stop, we pause, we take water, we sit down, or, and I check in and I'll even ask, how are we doing? And I'll see like if they're glazed, or if they're like, no, we're good. Like they're like in it, that's all good information. And you are holding the seat of the teacher. So you get to kind of control the ship and decide like, where are we going from here? And you will not always get it right. And that's okay. Your students will forgive you. That's fine. Okay. All right. Number 4.
Only one intense focus per practice, i.e. folds one day, back bends another.
Yeah. So with that being said, so that's where we look at how often do you think people are coming to yoga?
Once a week.
Yeah, maybe once a week, some more. Ben comes every day. But the rest, not everyone can come that often. So what I would say is don't try to fit it like, don't do like major forward folds, major back bends, that you want to get that nice variety into the mix of your class so that you're still getting those 6 movements of the spine. And that to just like make sure that it keeps it a nice, well-rounded practice for your students. Now, say you're teaching a series or you're teaching and you know that your students have a regular practice. Like some of my classes, I know, like my class tonight, Sunday night, is often regular students and my Tuesday, but like, and I know that they're going to be practicing more than once. So if I were to be maybe more heavy on balancing poses, or if I were to do something like not a lot of twists or whatever, that I know they're going to be going to class the rest of the week so that they're still going to get that good variety in class. But I still try to keep it as well-rounded as possible and not be too heavy one side or the other stuff. Okay. Okay, then next.
Me?
You
Are
can
we
check.
going in order?
We, I mean, I think that's what happened. You don't have to though. I don't.
Know what the poses purpose? Effects or effects? I always get confused with this.
Effects.
Effects and contraindications are.
Yeah, so just knowing like what's the point of this pose? What's it going to bring in? And then contraindications, those are things to be mindful of like potential, like say glaucoma, right? Say somebody has glaucoma, you want to be really mindful. They're not doing a lot of forward folds. They're not like getting their head below their heart. Like you know some of those things that kind of come along with poses. Rheumatoid arthritis, like not a lot of you're not putting a lot of weight bearing on the wrist. Those sort of things. Start to learn those things about the poses. Okay. Alrighty, number 6.
Know what a pose will demand of the practitioner. Be clear with your students what you are striving for. Keep it simple and not too long on one side.
Yeah, so this is, I think we've talked about this, right? Knowing when to back off, when we can maybe hold, and which side often gets shortchanged. The left side. So think about that when you're like, you don't have to say everything you know about the pose on the right side. Save some of it for the left side or repeat it on the left side. It's okay for repetition. Your students are not listening to you all the time. I know this, and I can tell you how I know this because I will have people come up to me after class sometimes and be like, oh my gosh, that cue, an extended side angle, when you said to do X, Y, Z, wow, that made such a difference. And I'll be like, I say that every time, but today you finally heard it. Like it, and that is just how we just can't. We don't have, our attention span does not allow for us to always like hear every single thing, or it just doesn't always resonate. So repetition is okay when you're teaching. You can say it over and over again and really try to keep it even on the sides. And this is where having a watch can be helpful, of just kind of noticing how you're doing for time. Okay. All righty. Number 7.
Keep in mind the fundamentals of the asana from the ground up and name the pose first.
This is going to help you when you're adding new poses into the mix. This rule doesn't change of like breath, pose, cues. So as soon as you start learning Ardha Chandrasana half moon, guess what? It's still breath, pose, cues. And where do you cue? Where do you start? From the ground up. That doesn't change whenever you start adding new things into the mix. Like I say that and you're like, well, duh. But no, really, when you're like, okay, I want to add something in. And then you're like, where do I start to even put this in? Put breath, pose from the ground up, right? Give those cues. And I will say it will make your life so much easier to call that pose right away. Because you will be surprised if you say, half moon. Half your class will go into it. They'll know it so that you don't have to say, okay, bend your right knee, pick up your back leg. Now reach that right hand forward. It's like, and everyone's kind of looking at you like, where am I going? Rather than just saying half moon. And they're like, oh, boom. Then you can start to break it down for those who are looking at you like, I don't know what that means. Then you can start to give those little cues. I will also say, here's my other thing for knowing Sanskrit and naming the pose first. So we went to Paris last year during Christmas time, and we took a yoga class in French. I don't speak French, friends. I speak Spanish and English. I do not speak any French. But I was like, surely I'll be able to figure it out, like I can look around. And whenever she used Sanskrit, I knew. I was like, boom, when she's all Virabhadrasana, I got this, right? Like, I knew. And so that's one more reason that it's helpful to learn that Sanskrit, but also when she would say the pose. And then I'd pick up, so there was some repetition of some words. I'm like, oh, okay, that means inhale, or, like, oh, okay, you start to figure that out. And so that's just going to be really helpful for you all. Yeah, so really call out that pose, especially when you start to add something new to the mix. Okay. Where are we at? Number 8.
Know where the pose should be placed and proper duration.
Yeah, so where are we putting this pose and how long are we going to be in it, right? That's important to start to figure out. And sometimes that can change. Some poses, maybe one day you want to give it more time than the other, and that's okay. Yeah? But know your why. That's a question you will hear from me when you start teaching. And if like I were mentoring you, you will be like, she's going to ask me this question. I will say, why? Why did you put that there? Why are we doing that pose? Why? Know your why, right? You started off today with your why. Well, it's definitely know your why. Why are we putting this hip opener here? That sort of thing. Okay. Number 9.
Study the pose, history, Sanskrit name and definition.
Yeah, this will help for those of you that are like, I'm sticking to the Cambio sequence for eternity. If it feels like that right now, well, here's the thing. Study these poses, look them up, have books, look online, however, but like get the Sanskrit down, study like, what does somebody else have to say about this pose? There are so many books out there that I can recommend to you where they're breaking poses down to be like, ooh, I like the way that cues it, or they're talking about the energetics of the pose in this way. Dive into that stuff. It's only going to enrich your class even more when you can speak to it a little differently. Yes, great.
Do you have any recommendations on like the history of the poses then?
Let's see. What is the book called? We have it out front. Okay, I'm going to zoom, Erin. Don't get dizzy. I'm going to zoom through here real fast. I can't remember if I have book recommendations here at the end. Let me see if I have any. There's definitely, yes. Okay, so on page 97 in your book, lots of recommended stuff. So like Light on Yoga, that Iyengar one. Have you all seen that book? It's out front. Some of these poses are just ridiculous. You'll be like, haha, funny, cute. That'll happen in about 3 lifetimes from now, right? These are all really good books to kind of delve into, to give you some more ideas of different ways, different approaches towards the asana. These are all really good ones. I would say that yoga sequencing from Mark Stevens is really great because it literally has in there like an intermediate sequence, a short sequence, and it'll say like 60 minutes in there, and it'll be like, here's a prenatal sequence, or here's a chakra one focusing on, the heart chakra. Like he's got a lot in there, so he goes even deeper. That Light on Yoga is a fun one to look at. All those are really good. So I have all, so I'm like, sorry, I'm not very helpful, but those are really great. I love that Jiva Mukti one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Erin held it up. Perfect. Yep. The Jiva Mukti
Yeah,
is great.
I think Greg said he ordered this one because he looked at mine. Because I think he's the one that asked the question.
Yeah, yes, he did. Yeah. The Jiva Mukti one is really great. That Ashtanga Yoga one is good. Yeah, there's David Swinson, that's also Ashtanga. That's a really good one. But then there's a lot of online resources there too that you can look at. So you don't have to buy all those books. You can look on some of those as well. So those can be different ways to kind of learn that. Okay, I'm going to scroll back here, and so don't look at the screen. Here we go. Perfect. Okay. Now lastly here, number 10.
Practice the pose or sequence before teaching it. Transition should be smooth, safe, and typically correspond with the breath.
Okay, I think I've already told you this, right? Yep. To make sure you practice it. And the transitions. So this is like the thing. The transitions are what I have found is what gets people most tripped up when they start teaching new sequences or just teaching in general are the transitions. Do we know what transitions are? Yeah, going from one pose to the next, right? So where in the Cambio sequence, give me a transitional cue that happens.
Sink into.
Bring the hands to right. So maybe hands to the ground, say from warrior 2, exhale, hands to the floor. What else? Stepping to the, I'm coming forward. Yep. What else?
Tabletop and you put your hands, one hand foot forward into downward dog.
Yep. Yeah. Or inhale that right leg up, exhale, lunge, right? Get from down dog. How do we get from down dog to warrior 2, right? Like, how does that work? And so for me, what I've really found, that is the thing that is, if you can get those things smoothed out, that will help your class to just feel better. It'll feel better for you. It'll feel better in your students' bodies when they're practicing. Because have you ever taken class where you felt you were kind of going like this? You're like, where am I going? Yeah, that like jerky kind of sort of thing. And those are the transitions. And that's where it's up to us as teachers to, if we can cue the breath, but at least get that pose out of what's the next actional. Is it the pose? What is next with that? And this is where I will say, if the breath throws you off, don't say it. Because if you guess it, you will guess wrong 100% of the time. It is just the law of physics in teaching yoga. I do not know why, but if I've ever been in a class and a teacher's like, exhale, I'm like, nope, backward. Like, and you can hear it in their voice when they're guessing. I'm like, guessed wrong. It's just like, if you can't remember, then just say breathe. It's okay to say, people are not going to die if you like didn't say exhale. Like, they will still inhale or exhale appropriately. We do it already. It's an autonomic thing that happens, right? So when in doubt, if you don't know the breath, don't say it. Just say breathe. It's okay. It's fine, because that can be a big source of stress. Yes. Have you all felt that already, where you're like, okay, I don't know, right? And you just panic. So don't say it, or say breathe. And that will help. And the other thing is that you're always kind of like a beat ahead, and that's going to really help to like set that tone and really start to set that rhythm. Okay. Does that make sense of being a beat ahead? Like, do you get? Yeah. So who wants to do a little movement for me? Who would like come here and come to a down dog for me? Hannah? Okay, great. So what that means is, so you're in down dog, right? Take a big exhale. Then inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, lunge. See how I'm it's just like one beat ahead, that I'm not so, and then inhale, lift your right leg up, lift it back up, take your right leg back up. What I'm not saying is, okay, now inhale, right leg lifts. Then exhale, step your foot forward. See how that's like not being ahead. It's not like flowing.
It's not flowing, right? It's like I'm kind of, when I'm saying inhale, right leg lifts, exhale, lunge. That action is there. Do you see the difference of that versus that, like, inhale, right leg lifts, right? Like, she doesn't know where that means, right? Okay, perfect, Hannah, great. Now, if you want to just lift your left leg up to just balance your body out, you can do that. Yeah. So it's trying to stay a little beat ahead if you can when you're teaching.
That's a good one, because there was something with my timing or whatever, but that's a bit of information.
Yeah, great, cool. Okay. How's this all landing? How are we doing with this information? Feel okay, or are we overwhelmed, or are we doing okay with this? Is it demystifying things a little bit? I hope so. That's really my goal, is to kind of demystify some of the sequencing. So you're like, oh yeah, this is why we do this. This is we're doing this for a reason. We're not doing cow and cat just for funsies. There's like an actual reason, like to start to warm things up a little bit. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to play. So as I drilled in the transitions, we're going to play the transition game. So this is something I came up with many years ago. And what we're going to do is this is where we tap into creativity a little bit and of just playing around with trying to maybe be a beat ahead and just kind of put all this into play a little bit. So I'm going to give you, we're going to split up into groups, and I'm going to give you 3 poses that I want you to sync together. They do not have to be like one right into the next. It might be one pose and then you add 3 poses and then you get to there, sort of a thing. Okay. So these poses are, you want to write these down. So airplane pose, Dekasana, just so you know, for the Sanskrit, warrior 2, and bridge. Now, I don't care how you get from one to the next, but I want you to figure out a path to get from there, okay? So it could be like, if I had said, for example, warrior 2 to extended side angle, you would be like, I could just go warrior 2 right into extended side angle, right? That's one way. But if I said warrior 2 to, or let's see, if I said down dog to Tadasana, you would be like, okay, so I have to go down dog, we got to get to the top of the mat, and then we got to stand up, right? That there's a few things that need to happen before you can get to that pose. So you kind of get to pick how many bus stops you have in between, how many poses you're going to put in between to get to there. Yes, so everyone will start in airplane. You don't have to cue getting into it. You're just going to start here, and it's like, where do you go next? Final destination will be to bridge, but you got to get a warrior 2 in the mix somewhere in there as well. Okay. Does that make sense? Do we have questions? It's okay to have questions. Okay. So how many do we have here today? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Did somebody count? Oh, thank you. I love that. Let's do, okay. So let's do 4 groups of 3-ish. So I'm going to have Erin count. So we'll count to 4, right? That makes sense. That yes, math me and numbers. I'm like, so I'll have Erin, you'll be 1. Okay, so you're 1,
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, great. So now we have 4 groups because I just realized I messed up, but it's perfect. That's fine. We can have 4 groups. So 1s find each other, 2s, 3s, 4 from a sort, and put yourself in little places in the room. And what I want to see happen is you all are going to come together and create a little sequence of like, how are we going to get from this to this to this? Guess what I'm going to want to see happening around the room? Doing it. Yes. I don't want to see you all just sitting in this tight little circle. Nobody ever stands up and move. I want you to actually try some of this stuff. Some of you groups are going to be really creative and like doing all sorts of wild things. Some of you are going to be really simple and straightforward, and that is all perfect. This is a good learning opportunity. I hope that some of you get it completely wrong so that we can talk about it. Okay? Okay. Let's I'm going to take you with me here, Erin, so that you can be where whoever's. All right. How was that real quickly? How'd that go? It's a good thing. Did you have fun doing that? Did you have fun? Is it get the creative juices going a little bit? There you go. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we'll have this group go for you were 1, right? You were 1 anyway. So we'll have them go first. And so everyone will stand up and you'll all start an airplane. And now here's the deal. You get to control as you're practicing. So then the next group is going to start an airplane. You probably want to start on the other leg so that you can just, balance your body out a little bit so that you're not wearing yourself out. Okay. Okay. Are you guys ready? Just be ready. You are ready. Okay. Who's going? Okay.
Everybody's doing it?
Okay, I think Hannah, are you saying it? Okay, great. All right, so y'all come to your airplane pose. And then Erin, you can watch everybody or you can do it, your choice, since you know what they're doing.
All right, I'm gonna wing the last part until bridge. So here we go. I'm gonna wing it. All right, guys. Inhale, airplane. Right leg standing up. Exhale, Utkatasana. So if you start with the right foot, yeah, Utkatasana. Inhale, sink into your chair. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, lunge with the same foot, like right foot back. Inhale, warrior two. Inhale, warrior two. Exhale, stand the side angle. Inhale, reverse warrior. Exhale, cartwheel your hands to the mat.
I could just do that.
Half series. Go your half series.
Or skip it.
Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Now, just seating the mat. I mean, come back to the mat. Okay, so I can decide just going into three.
You guys are so cute.
Sounds good. So inhale, we're going to boat pose. So this is boat, and this is boat. So find your own inhales and exhales here. Great job. One more set of inhales.
I love that she's making you all hold it.
Okay, come back. So now we're gonna try a new one that we learned yesterday. We're gonna do Lolasana.
You're so cool.
Yes, right?
And I was like, I will do Lolasana.
So come to your knees. Then we're going to brace up your left front. Hands on the floor. So you're gonna push.
So technically, all you have to say is Lolasana.
Oh, Lolasana.
That's all you gotta say.
So inhale, try to lift your knees without using your feet. Exhale, come back to the floor, and then lay on your back. We're gonna do bridge.
There we go. Love that. Woohoo! Nicely done.
Okay.
And she made you work a little
Yes.
bit extra. Okay. Okay, great. Good job, you guys. First group to go. All right. Now, let's recap. Let's review. How'd that feel? How'd that go? How did they get from airplane? What was next? What came after airplane? Chair. Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Airplane to Utkatasana. Yeah, that worked. Yes, I would say, right? Airplane to chair definitely works. What was your breath though? What did you all do? You said,
We held the breath in chair.
and then how did you? Let me just,
So inhale, airplane. Exhale, chair.
so I probably, let's see.
That was probably like.
And I exhale in the chair.
My gosh, let's see. Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Cause then, we held the breath and then we forward fold.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Yeah, so that works. So airplane to chair, definitely, right? That makes sense because, right, you're here and then you bend the knees, right? It's simple, quick, easy bus stop to get there. Okay. Then what? Then what happened?
Then we did, we sink into the chair and then inhale and then exhale, forward fold.
Mhm.
Then inhale, standing halfway lift, and we only put that to match the breath.
Perfect.
Right, because that's, otherwise we will not match.
Mhm.
Then exhale, lunge.
Then you step back, right? Then we step back.
Inhale.
Yep. And then you did the warrior dance.
Dance.
Yep.
Then we come back to the series.
And then you flowed. And then you were in down dog. And then what?
And we were in down dog, and then we came into the mat like a horsey,
Yeah. Then just came down, right? Then you just simply then just
And
come
we
on
like
down.
to be creative.
Come down, right? And then come down. And then you did,
Great place.
and then you did boat and then Lolasana into bridge, right?
Yeah.
And that worked. How'd that feel for everybody? Did it feel okay? Did any part feel awkward or anything or? Feel okay?
Oh. It's easy to come down on my back.
Yeah, from boat, you could have done boat and then roll right onto your back into bridge as well. Definitely, you could have done that as well.
So that means we could switch Lovasana and then do both.
You could have, yep, you could have, because then if you're in down dog and then you say come down to the knees and then Lolasana, you're right into Lolasana, then you swivel around and you come to boat and then lie down.
Yeah, I would have, yeah, I like that better.
You could have, but yeah.
But you have all the right moves. That's
Mhm.
great.
I did have a question, cause like some members in the team wanted to go straight to bridge. And I was like, do we have to warm up
No.
before going?
Not for this, not for this
Okay.
sake, not for today. This was
Okay.
just to like, you could have just gone right to bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't have to do that. Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
okay. But usually in a class.
Right, in a class, yeah, but this was just kind of like for funsies to see. Yeah, this is just get the brain to start thinking about how would we build hope, how would we link poses together? No. No, don't worry about the neutralizing and all that jazz. No.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to go next? Which group next? Yes, you may. You're all, yeah. Whoever's teaching, come up here just so that Erin can hear you.
She's gonna speak.
Yeah. Okay, you all stand up. Pick your leg for airplane, whichever leg you want to be in.
We did both sides, so I hope I don't get confused while I'm doing this.
We'll just pick a side, it doesn't matter.
I know, but there's a lot of weird notes here.
Okay.
Both sides, and we can do exact opposite.
Sure, let's do whatever you want.
There you go, Gabby, I love it. Love it.
Okay, starting in airplane. Extended mountain. Forward fold. Take your half series.
Oh.
Ending in downward dog, right leg lifts. Low lunge. Up to warrior 2.
Careful.
Reverse your warrior. Cartwheel the hands, take your half series, ending in down dog. Left leg lifts. Low lunge. Coming up to crescent. And this is, so we were gonna airplane this side,
Yeah,
right?
that's this one.
Oh.
We did both.
Right.
Extra credit.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna call it.
Okay,
For airplane. what is
so then you would have done that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Then we did
extended
the whole thing.
mountain,
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, got it.
Forward fold.
Got it. Okay, great. So let's pretend you did all that and fast forward.
Halfway lift. And then plank. All the way belly down to the floor. And take 3 cobra, baby cobras. And then from here, you're gonna take a seat. And come into staff. And take a few breaths here. And then go ahead and lay on your back and come into the.
Right, all right, yay. All righty, good job, you guys. I know, Hope was doing the 1 beat ahead. I love it. I know, that's good though. I will tell you, that is a really good cue. 2 things. So this is kind of side notes, but to help you with teaching. So 1, when you do start teaching, if you have someone who knows that, like, if you guys take each other's classes, once it gets to like intern kind of things, yeah, if you kind of do that for them while they're teaching, they'll be like, oh yeah, then they know. You give them, that helps them. However, I will say, while you all are learning the sequence, don't do that to each other when you're practice teaching. When you are practice teaching with each other, pretend like you have no idea what is happening. Because those of you who've practice taught family members, they don't know what's next, do they? And then they're like looking at you, you're saying things and they're like, huh? Who's-y, what's-y? And you got to figure out different words or different language to get them into the poses. So you might be thinking you're helping your friend by doing it, but don't help. Just, you got to stay and hang out, wait until they find the right words for it.
So
Let them sweat a little bit, and you're going to sweat because you'll be like holding the pose, but It's okay. Let them take a minute to get that down. Okay. Okay, great. Sorry, I had to sidebar that, but that's helpful. Sorry, Erin. I don't mean to be giving you a seizure while we're okay, so we went this class. You all had a little extra credit in there. I love it. So it went airplane to where? Extended mountain. Yeah, and that worked, right? Yeah, that totally worked. Airplane to extended mountain. Just stand right on up. Very simple move, made sense. Okay, then we forward folded. I would have added a halfway lift and then vinyasa. If we just think about the breath with that. And then you did warrior 2 and we came up. Now, technically, if you were like flowing that, you would have inhaled to warrior 2, then you would have said exhale, then inhale, reverse warrior, exhale. Technically, if we're gonna be technical about it. And then came down and then you did some cobras. And then how did we get to bridge? You just pressed up, right? You pressed up from cobras.
Well, no, we
Went to staff.
Yeah, but you pressed up to seated, or how did you get to staff? How'd you get from cobra to staff?
I just said seated and.
So you just said seated, so just come on up, yeah. Yeah, so that's where maybe say, come on, press up to tabletop or press up, how, like, think about, come into cobra, everybody, and know that you're going to staff pose. How do you get there?
Pancake.
How did you get there? Yeah, come to the knees. Yeah, so press up onto your knees, swivel the legs around, right? So just making sure to like, think about that when you're teaching, like to just, sometimes you got to say those little words because it can, once you're in it, if you're like, how do I say to get from the belly to seated, right? You got to figure out, you press up onto your hands and knees, swivel the legs around kind of a thing. Yeah. Yeah, great. And then we went down to bridge. Perfect. Great. Okay, nobody's done anything egregious yet. All right. Group 3. I'm counting on you. So I'm just maybe you all just paid such good attention in Kristen's lecture yesterday that
We did side roll.
you did. Okay, let's stand up again. You got an airplane to do.
We'll go ahead and get into airplane. You want me to do breaths or no?
No.
Okay.
You don't have to if you want to, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. Step back to crescent lunge. Bring your leg forward for chair. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, go through your half series.
Look how you're all doing. Some of you are like, you're committed. You're like, I will do that, chaturanga.
From downward dog, go ahead and lift up whichever leg you're working on.
Good. There we go. That's a good teacher paying attention.
Bring
Sorry.
it forward for a low lunge. Inhale, warrior 2. Exhale, extended side angle. Inhale, reverse warrior. High plank to low plank. Or no, just high plank. Get into high plank. And then bring your hips back for child's pose. And just sit there for a second and relax. Okay, from here, we're going to come to the back. Swinging the legs around whichever way you want. Go ahead and hug your knees in. And release your legs. Bring your heels close to your butt, and we're going to do bridge.
There we go. Good. Nice. Good job. Yay. All right. Okay. So we went airplane to crescent lunge. And that totally makes sense, right?
Yes.
Airplane, you step that foot back right into crescent lunge. And then where we go? To chair, and then step forward to chair. Yep. That makes sense, right? We're on the same plane, working that same, the hips in the same. Yep. That worked. And then we flowed, right? Then there was a flow. And then the warrior dance, right? That was next. That made sense. And then how did we get down to the floor? What was the transition? Does anybody remember?
Plank to child's pose. How was that transition?
I take plank
So-
on my knees, so it's really easy.
You what?
I do plank on my knees,
Uh-huh.
so maybe
That kind of work, cause
That was
I guess
easy
you
on
went
me
down to
because
your
it's
knees
just-
from plank.
Was it a little clunky? I think it was a little clunky. And watching you all, it was a little clunky. So what could you do that's so close?
Maybe a tabletop in between there.
Or there's one other pose you could have done it from that would have been a little bit easier
Before we got into blank.
before you went into child's pose.
Downward.
Yeah, go to down dog. And now child's pose. See how that feels. Try it. Let's not think it, let's feel it. I can get away with it. But see the difference from playing to child's pose versus down dog to child's pose? It's subtle, but it's a little, do you feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're already kind of in that same direction with the hips, so then it's a little bit simpler than, because from plank, if I drop, so if you say plank to child's pose, it's like, because to me to drop my knees, they're kind of here. But for child's pose, I want my knees out wider, right? So it's one of those where
Okay, yeah.
it just, it's just to smooth it out a little bit. Yeah, yeah. Great, and then we just flipped around, right? That was it, yeah. Perfect, great. Okay, one more group, yes?
Yep.
Okay.
We're here. Okay, crew. So we also kind of did both legs, but instead of doing both sides, let's go ahead and start in a one-legged Tadasana.
Nope, you're gonna start an airplane pose, because that's
That-
where you start.
Okay. never mind. Well, let's pretend we inhaled on that left leg, but then we're gonna exhale into airplane. Inhale, crescent lunge. Crescent.
Yep.
Exhale, warrior two, rotate the back foot. Inhale, straighten the front knee. Exhale, triangle. Inhale, reverse triangle. And then exhale, cartwheel the hands, plank to low plank. For your half series, inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Let's go ahead and take a seat on the mat. We'll come down into a good morning stretch. Lay on our backs, feet in front of us, hands overhead. Stretch out the body. Nice. And then exhale, bridge. Bring our heels to our butts.
Yeah, there you go.
Reach our hands and bridge.
Okay, perfect, there we go, nicely done, y'all. Yes, yes.
genuine question. What do you do when you like say butts or groin and somebody laughs in class? Alternatively, what do you do when somebody like farts in class and everybody starts giggling? I've been thinking about that for days now, and maybe it's the caffeine, but I'm like, do you just keep going? Do you just roll with it?
Yeah, I mean, you can say the word butt.
That's
You can say butt, you can say groin, I mean, they are parts of the body. Right? You can say them, and guess what? Farting is normal, it's natural. It did happen in my class on Wednesday, actually last week in Shavasana. And it was funny because Austin was in that class and we were driving home and he goes, "Who ripped one?" And he's like, "I thought people were gonna think it was me." And he's like, he's like, "They threw that fart so far." And I was like, "No, it was so-and-so." And they were like kind of close to him. And he's like, "I swear, I'm sure that Miriam thought it was me." And I was, and I mean, you just roll with it. I mean, I don't worry too much about it. What I do, I will say, there's times when I teach, if I do like corporate yoga or even in just like my regular classes, where if I'm having people do this, rock and roll, I'll say, "Now try not to fart." Like, I'll just say it because if I don't say it, especially in like a corporate yoga where maybe people aren't familiar with yoga, you get them rocking and rolling, it's gonna just shoot out and they don't have any kind of control over that.
What do you do if you're giving an adjustment and someone?
That has also
I'm-
happened to me.
With a happy baby.
I was adjusting someone in a vertical twist crescent lunge one time, and I just went over to him and he's all, "Vroom," and and I was like, okay, and you just kind of like, you just, whatever, don't worry about it. Don't like go, oh God, like you just let it, like if you're someone who can make a joke about it, I don't know, you could fart too and be like, see, well, I don't like get creative, but I wouldn't make any, just join them. I don't know. But like, I wouldn't draw too much attention about it, like if you're, depending on your sense of humor and who you are, like if you're quick-witted, maybe you come up with something, but yeah.
If they start giggling or something, you could also just say, not on the fart part, but like if you say butt or ass, or that's gonna be me, but just when they giggle, just be like, yep, we all have one, like, and just keep it.
Exactly. And just keep on going, like acknowledge it, but let people laugh. I mean, it happens. It's all right. Like you don't have to shame it. No. And just let it go. I mean, I will tell you, in all my years of teaching, I am constantly surprised. I have seen many, many things, many weird things, and I have not seen it all, because there will be something that happens this week now that we're having this conversation. I'll be like, yep, and that's a first, right? Like humans are funny. We do really weird shit sometimes. And like, it'll, like in Austin, oh no, you had teacher training Thursday. So his class on Thursday night, he like asked a question and it was like rhetorical. And he's like, no, where are you feeling this? And someone's like, in my right leg. Like that, they just shouted it. Like, and it's like, he was not actually asking for you to respond, but like that'll happen. People are funny.
I liked it. I was in the class that I think you were in with him,
Mhm.
and he forgot to do a side, and you just kind of like quietly were like in the position.
Oh, I
you're
go,
like,
yeah, I did. I hummed him. Yes. Yeah.
It was funny.
I know, right? And that's always good when you have a fellow yoga teachers in class.
Nice to see that, yeah.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Like he's gonna forget, and then someone will. Usually, there's some teacher to help you, or like a seasoned practitioner who they'll start to do it, and you're like, oh yeah. Okay, so back to your all sequence. Great job. I was hoping someone would do that transition. So airplane to crescent, right? That super simple, right? Airplane, crescent, and then boom, warrior two. That's your two poses. Check, check. You check them right off the box. Then you flowed, came down. You added a good morning stretch, and then bridge, right? Boom, boom, boom. Love it. Yeah, and like real quick and easy, no nonsense, no fuss, no muss, like didn't add a ton in there. Great, 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 great. Did that feel okay for everybody? Yeah, great. Yeah, so what I didn't see, and I'm really grateful, is that nobody went from like airplane, nobody did airplane. Try this. I want to have you try a couple things and just you tell me how this feels. Now, if you have any injuries, like be careful. I mean, this is not gonna like hurt you. So from airplane, go right into warrior two. How is that? It's a little weird, isn't it? It's like you want like an extra step, don't you? Like you want that crescent lunge. Okay, and you also stay in warrior two. You also didn't do this. Warrior two to airplane.
That's,
Hands are wrong, arms are wrong.
it's straight, but it's still kind of.
Yeah, right? What did Kristen say about that yesterday?
Oh.
Think about the hips. Yeah, we want to avoid going open to closed and for the most part and poses. So you all didn't do that. Great job. Gold stars around for all of you. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay, questions. Anything coming up for you all now that we're doing this? Was this fun? Was this helpful to kind of get to play around with this a little bit? Yeah. Okay. But any questions, anything popping up? But now it's like, you're like, ooh, I have a burning desire to know this. Feeling okay? Okay. How are we doing temperature?
Are you okay? Do we need to prop the door? Are you warm? Are you okay? I can't tell. I'm like, huh? I feel it's like a weird, I don't know, the temp, I mean, this time of year, I feel like it's like, what is temperature during this time? I know, Colorado in the fall. Okay, let's let's go back to the manual and see where we are here next. Okay. So on the bottom of 87, okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit here and now look at what happens when we are short on time, because guess what, friends? That's gonna happen. That may have already happened to you if you've been practice teaching someone, if you were like trying to time it and then you're like, oh shoot, now I'm out of time. Ah, where do I go? Now, here's what I will say about timing when it comes to the sequence. So I highly, highly recommend looking at your watch every 15 minutes. This is one of the things that like for myself, like I kind of have it down now to a science to where when I teach the 5:45 a couple times a week. So at 6:16 on the dot, I'm usually done with my Sun B or Sun C kind of thing that I'm playing with. And it's just like, and then if I'm either ahead or behind, that gives me information if I need to like speed things up or start to edit or tweak things as we go. But if you can start to look like every 15 minutes, that will kind of keep you on track and lets you know like, ooh, what do I need to do at this point in class? Am I needing to like, do I need to slow down? Do I need to like cut something? Like where are you at when we start to look sequencing wise? Now, if you look at music, have you done music with Austin yet? Rebecca, okay, so there are timing points in there too. So you have the sequence that correlates with time in there. So you can always take a look at that for time points. But Karen, yeah.
Do you mind sharing your done by Sun B 15 minutes? At
Mhm.
30 minutes, you're typically.
Yeah,
done by-
well, because yes. So here's my points. That 15 minutes, like that, so that would be like class started at 5:45. So that's like a half an hour in, I'm done with Sun B. So that's like where I'm at. That's like my done point-ish. The other big time point that I look at is the last 15 minutes. So in a 5:40, well, let's just say a 5 o'clock class. So you're not having to do these weird math with numbers. At 5, so if it's class starts at 5, by 5:45, you better be getting down to the floor to start doing your camel and your half pigeon and all of that. Okay. That's like, those are the big points. Okay. Those are like the big moments to really start to check in with. Because what happens if it's like 5:50 and you're still in triangle and class is done at 6? Yeah, like when is Shavasana going to happen? Where is the wind down when we start to think about class? Because the thing of it is vinyasa, it's a very yang or yang practice, right? And we want to balance that out with yin energy. And I don't mean yin poses, I mean that like that nice balance of like effort and ease of having those two. And already people's lives are already very full of that, like lots of energy. So in our class, we want there to be like at least 25-30% is starting to just wind down a bit, that we're not just like go and then Shavasana, like that doesn't feel good in anybody's body to do that, right? So having those time points are going to be really, those timestamps will really help you out to keep you on track of where you're going. Okay. And now know that it takes about 90 seconds when you are getting out of Shavasana. So you will do a lot of time travel when you're teaching. You're going to be like, class starts at this time. Then you start thinking ahead and you're like, okay, wait, I got how much time? Like you work forward and back with time. There's so much going on in our brains when we're teaching, right? We're controlling the lights, the music, the heat, the adjusting, the sequencing. And then you're like, wait, where? Time. Yes, Alexis.
How long would you typically recommend Shavasana? Like 5 minutes?
If you can do 5, great. In an hour-long class, yeah, I would say 3 to 5 minutes. 4 is great. 5 is even better if you can make that happen for your class. Definitely. But no, you've got to build in that time to get them out to seated.
So it's like 3.5 minutes in Shavasana and then another 90 seconds to.
Well,
get it
or, but if you can be a full 5 in Shavasana, great, but just know that there's gonna be, it's not like Shavasana, boom, you're done. You gotta get them out and then up, right? To seated to close the practice. And that's about 90 seconds approximately. You can speed it up if you need to. You can be like, okay, wiggle fingers and toes and then make your way to seated. You can say that if you need to, but usually we say, you know, roll the ankles and wrists, roll to your side, you know, we give them all that. But if you're short on time, you know, be mindful of that. Yeah. And this is where that timing, I think, is so important, especially when we start to think about, you know, go back to the yamas and niyamas, right? Of asteya, time, stealing, right? We don't want to steal people's time. We want to be honoring their time because they may have a meeting or an appointment or a sitter or whatever that might be that they're like doing. And so we want to really acknowledge that time for people.
Something that I really liked, I want to say it was Kristen's class, but she said, like, at the end, she was like, just let you know, there's 3 minutes left in this song.
Mhm.
And that kind of, I like that, because that's a cue to, you know, like, time is 5 o'clock, there's 3 minutes left in the song, if you can stay, please stay, you know.
Yep.
Kind of gives everyone an awareness, but also a allowance to take their time.
Yeah, because then it's like, okay, I can hang out a little bit longer, but I do have to be somewhere. But now I know if I can just chill until the song is over, you know, it gives people more information. And I would rather give them more than rather than guessing. And then they're like, oh no, I gotta go, you know, that sort of thing. Absolutely. And you can always say, like many of us often say in class, if you'd like to stay in Shavasana longer, you're welcome to. Those of you that are ready to go or need to go, then start to make your way out. That's a great way to give people permission to stay longer, or if they want to be done, that lets people kind of take care of themselves and do what they need to. Hi. Which I think is really nice and sweet tool to give your students. Okay. Now, when we look at, oh yeah. How are you? Ooh, good.
Sorry.
This is Caleb. You all know Caleb, don't you? Here, Caleb, I'm gonna give you this. I'm very sorry. What do you need?
Chargers.
Oh. So,
Sorry, y'all.
no, I don't know where they are. No, it's not back here, is it? No, it's somewhere. Someone,
I'll keep looking.
okay.
All right. See you guys Thursday.
Okay, so now if we look at the Cambio sequence, so if we start realizing, oh, we're getting short on time. So we have here our list of, you could cut eagle. You could cut that balancing pose out of the mix, right? That's gonna save some time if you needed to, because I would argue that crescent lunge in itself is a balancing pose. Wouldn't you say? When you're in it, don't you feel like you feel that balance, right? I would also say that then you could cut out that half series in between. And here's where I will also, and this may or may not have been told to you at this point in time, but I would strongly encourage you when you are practice teaching to try to teach eagle this way. And so tell me if you've heard this yet or not. So we're in Utkatasana, and then you come to your eagle, right? You're here, and then you can come to Utkatasana, and then you go right into the other side.
Yeah.
Have you learned this?
I've seen.
So I would try this, because for time, this is going to be one of those things that the real world of teaching yoga, that's what's going to probably have to happen. You're probably going to need to catch up on some time. Yeah.
Would we then cut gorilla
No.
out of that?
So you would go right side, left side, forward fold, gorilla, right into your gorilla, and right into crow. And then it's just like eagle, eagle, gorilla, crow. There's no half series. There's none of that, like that filler stuff in the mix, but that's a great way to save some time when you're sequencing. Does that make sense, or did I just confuse the heck out of you all?
But we do put Utkatasana, right? How you did it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and why do we do chair before eagle anyway? In the right position, right? Okay, so here's a test for you all. Dun, dun, dun. So when we look here, if you look at this whiteboard, I have kind of like your class integration, Sun A, Sun B, all that kind of up there. Okay, that's on the whiteboard here. So where does Eagle fit into the mix? Balancing, right? It's a balancing pose. Okay, so say, did you learn tree yesterday? Okay, so say you're like, I want to do tree instead of eagle. Okay, we all remember tree. This is tree, right? Tree. How are we going to get into tree? From where? From whence? Mountain pose. Are we going to get into it from Utkatasana? No. Why not?
It's not setting up.
Yeah, right? Because we do Utkatasana for eagle because the legs, right? They're bent. We start in mountain pose for tree because this leg is straight. Does that make sense? Because we don't say eagle we don't say Utkatasana tree. Right? Like what am I supposed to, because if we're here and then you say tree pose, you got to stand up, straighten the leg, and then bring the foot up. Okay? Is that clear? Yeah, so just know that Utkatasana there is not meant to always be there. It's there to set you up for eagle pose. So this is where we think transition game a little bit. It's part of like that step happens, that Utkatasana is there to help make that transition smoother. Okay? Okay, cool. All right. Now, the other area where you could make up some time are the half series and the goddess from your triangle. So that would mean you would do, have you done this one yet? Where you do right side, then you stand right side triangle, stand up, and then pivot to the back, do left side triangle. Come to standing, do your wide-legged forward fold, stand back up. And then however you want to, you can vinyasa or step to the top of your mat, however you want to get there from that one. Yeah. Are we clear? Am I losing you? Okay. And it's okay. If I'm going too fast, tell me to be like, wait, I need it. Okay. Cause I know it can be a lot. You're like, my brain. Let's see. Then I have here, you could cut camel or locust if you realize like it's a crunch at the end of time, but I wouldn't cut both. Why is that? Because yeah, it's spine, right? That's spinal extension, it's spine strengthening. So don't cut both, keep one. Okay. And then dare I say it, you won't love this part, but you can cut half pigeon. And everyone's like, no, but it's my half pigeon. But it's a hip opener, and when else have we opened the hips? Lizard, right? Lizard, you probably spent some time in lizard lunge. So that right there is enough, right? It may not be your favorite thing to like, but they had a hip opener already. So you could cut it because that definitely takes up a lot of time for there. Okay. And then just make sure you don't shorten or sacrifice Shavasana. So that's going to be really important to like make sure that you're not cutting that out. Okay. And we'll get into it next time we meet about Sun A. So what I want you to notice that I didn't say was shorten your Sun A or your Sun B. Why do you think that is? We'll just do a little precursor. What's to come? Yeah.
Sun A and Sun B are meant to like get you in the flow, get you on the start. Like we do all the forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold. Because you need your spine to be wiggly, you need your muscles to be stretched.
Yep.
I'm just curious because there's 3 parts of Sun B, and I know when we talked like maybe a month ago in our beginners class, we talked about potentially being able to cut out that last section, the section of Sun B without chair. Is that something that, I mean, it's harder to be able to gauge where you are in time at the beginning of a class, but if you were really short on time, is that something that you'd still have the option to do?
To cut out chair? Oh, yeah.
Or cut out the last section of Sun B. So there's the chair, no chair section, and just cut out the no chair section.
Not for a regular vinyasa class.
So just
A
for-
beginner class, yes, that's a different group. But if you're teaching a public vinyasa class, I implore you to not. For a couple reasons. One, that's part of your warm up. There's a level of expectations from your students where that happens. And I will say for me personally, and maybe this will resonate with you all as well, but I love those sun salutations, sun A and sun B, to help get me out of my head, this damn busy thing that won't shut up and drop into my body. And when we start cutting out some of that, and that flow is how we get into it. So if you start cutting all that stuff out, it doesn't help us get out of here and get into here, in my opinion. Now, if your whole class starts like dropping like flies, then you can adjust need be depending on what you're doing. But I would say if you're teaching like at Cambio, that you make sure you get that one slow, that building the muscle memory and then flow it 2 times. Like just make that like consistent part of what you do. Okay.
I think it was Caleb that described it as sun A, sun B are like the blueprints.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Maybe massage it or.
Yes. Yes. But try to keep those pretty steady. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Are we clear on like if we were to like kind of edit the sequence a little bit? Now there are other things you can do too, obviously, but this is just kind of gives you some ideas. And because it will happen and inevitably will happen, right? Like maybe someone comes in late or like 4 brand new people walk in the door right before class starts. Guess what, friends? That happens all the time. And you're like, ah, and then you start late, but you still got to finish on time. So if that ever happens, then you know right off the bat, you're already at a deficit for time. And it's like, what am I going to do to catch up and make time? So then you have that luxury to be like, all right, here's where I know I'm going to start editing down the line with class. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Let's see. We've got let's see, the next section here. Let me see. Let's skip, we'll dive into that more about the peak stuff a little bit next time we meet. But let's look at page 89, I think, yeah. Let's look at this one real quickly here. And this is what we'll dive into really next time more with all this stuff, but being willing to scrap your plans. So this is one of those things that and I think we've already talked about, like, depending on who shows up, right? Who's showing up to class, you might be like, maybe like that class that Ashlyn took that you were like, I'm going to teach Bird of Paradise, but everybody who comes to class is like brand spanking new, or you're like, oh, wait, no, this doesn't make sense to who I'm teaching to. So you scrap your plans, you edit, and you come back to the sequence, right? Come back to a really simplify that sequence down as much as you can. Okay. Then when students need to rest, like what are signs that if your students are getting tired or fatigued, what do you think that looks like? They're just going to child's pose, but what do you think you're going to notice in them? Really breathing hard or holding their breath. Their faces might get real red, right? You know, there's going to be a lot of, like all those kind of things might start to happen. Yeah. And when we over fatigue the legs, then the injury is hurting the back, right? If the legs get worked too much, then the core might be not engaging as much, and then their backs might start to get injured there. Okay, that knowing how to get in and out safely in and out of the poses. When in doubt, come to neutralize. Time management, that's one of those things. Check that work back from different points in class if you need to. How can your sequence be tied into a theme? And this is just kind of notice this as over this next month until we connect up again in a few weeks. Having that well-rounded class. How many movements of the spine? 6. Yes. And then kind of rounding it out here is, how do you want your students to feel when they leave? This is like, start to think about that. What experience do I want them to walk away with? What does that look like for them? And then, bless you, and then safety, right? Safety is number 1. That's kind of our rule of thumb, regardless of like, we keep them safe. So whatever we're building, keep them safe. Okay. Okay, friends, so we're gonna stop here. This is our time. Is this exciting to start to think about this stuff, right? I'm like, ooh, yay. So I would encourage you to, you know, when you're practicing or observing classes, like start to notice little sequencing things. This is where you may want a notebook. I will say I have a teaching notebook. This is mine. And it looks like this. Like sometimes I do stick figures of like where this is like a little vignette or a little section. And so I draw it out. Sometimes I just write it out. Sometimes I've got like my quote. You know, I've got a theme, and I'll just like write out some of the poses, you know, like so this is helpful to have some kind of something, right? Like last night for my thing last night, I've got like I wrote it out, I circled like high points, I had my time points of like, here's when I gotta start to come down. Like I just planned ahead for that, what that's gonna look like. So maybe when you're practicing, jot some notes down of like, ooh, I really like that transition, you know, I really like that use of props or whatever that might be, so that when you start to teach, you could start to incorporate some of that stuff into the mix. Okay. Okay, can we do a word real fast? Like maybe a takeaway from sequencing today for you? Yes? Erin, can I put you on the spot to go first?
Just a word for
Yeah.
the sequencing?
Yeah, just a word.
Pattern.
Pattern. Okay, great. Trevor, I'm gonna see if I can get your names all too now. Okay, Trevor. Okay, Alexis,
Creativity.
Ashlyn,
And
Hope,
grounded.
okay, Hannah,
Safety.
hey, Rachel,
Order.
okay,
That
Karen,
was mine too, safety.
Great.
Yes.
Karen, Laura, nice, good,
And Mike.
nice, great,
Safety.
nice, Cynthia,
Flexibility.
Yabby,
Balancing.
nice. And I'll say, I'm gonna close off with fun. Remember to have fun with it too, right? To enjoy that journey and have fun with it. Awesome. Okay, well, thanks you all. Great job today. Yay, it was so fun to finally get to meet you all. Like the infamous wonderful group that I keep hearing about. All right.